Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. Today we have Tara Christie of Banyan Gold. Banyan is exploring in the Yukon with a possible 7 million ounce gold deposit. Tara, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Great to see you down in New Orleans a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was fun. It was good to meet you, and it was my first time hearing about Banyan. Why don't you start off by telling us your story and how you got into mining in the for gold in the Yukon?
Well, my father's a geologist. So when I went to university, that was the last thing I was going to do. But then I got there and I discovered I was actually good at it. And first year engineering, I thought I was going to go into biomedical engineering and be a doctor. And then, you learn so much in your first couple of years of university. And pretty soon I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to go into geotechnical engineering, which gives me a bit of geology, mining, a little bit of civil engineering. Graduated with a master's in geotechnical engineering. I'd worked in the Yukon. I actually paid my way through university working at various mines, and I learned quite a bit about the business from my father. And yeah, I was pretty much hooked, and then became the CEO of Banyan in 2016. I'd been on the board before, and I have quite a lot of experience working in the mining industry. I'd done a lot of consulting, working with First Nations, environmental assessment, even worked for Newmont for a little while up on Hope Bay. Had a broad range of experience. So when Banyan was looking for a CEO in 2016, it was a great opportunity. And then I knew about this project because I actually purchased the alluvial rights over top of it from an estate privately in 2013 before I was a CEO. And when there's free gold on the surface in the gravels, that gold came from somewhere. So I knew about it. And then in 2017, I set out to acquire the two pieces then of what is now our Ormac property. So, it's been a short journey. We made our discovery in 2019. So, we haven't been really well known, but, we drilled three holes in the summer of 2019. We set out to put together our first resource, starting drilling in October, which you think of the Yukon as being cold, but this part of the Yukon, because we have roads and power, is very accessible, and cell phone service even. So yeah, that's the story. And here we are today now sitting with a 7 million ounce resource, which I'm confident we can continue to grow. And it's a pretty exciting time for gold projects.
All right. Do you want to share your screen and maybe show us, kind of walk us through the video that you've got? It kind of outlines the project, and it'll give us a good idea what we're looking at.
Okay, here we go. So this is the Yukon, Northern Canada, right beside Alaska. It's been a really exciting time in the Yukon. We've had major new discoveries, off to the east, Snowline, off to the west, Sitka. We've had an operating mine right beside us, which currently isn't operating. It had some challenges this year, which is part of why our share price has been hit. But look at that Raven deposit right across the road, across the valley from us. There's 1.1 million ounces at 1.7, and I think there's a whole lot more there. There's going to be a regional mill in this district somewhere. I think it'll probably be at our site where the power and the infrastructure is. Here's our deposit, our power line and our airstrip deposits. Power line is now 5 kilometers across, and we have those exceptional attributes of roads, power, cell phone service, which are really important for any deposit. Here you're seeing the 3D model underneath the ground. This goes to a maximum depth of 200 meters, which is kind of a rule of thumb for economic deposits. Open pit, airstrip dips underneath. You could see those sheeted veins, lots of visible gold. 7 million ounces at 0.63 is the resource. But within that, if you use a higher cutoff grade, you could take out a 4.4 million ounces of 1.04 or 2.4 million ounces of 1.45. And why that's important is you need that higher grade in the earlier part of the project to get a good IRR. And we know this mineralization goes down to 650 meters. That is, this thing has very deep roots. If that's consistent across the whole property, this will run for a very, very long time. Every 200 meters, how many ounces do you have as you go down? It's been a short journey. This year, we're teed up to do our resource update and then a PEA in 2025. Lots of drill results. We drilled 21,000 meters this year. So, and we just shipped our last samples yesterday now. So we're just going to be shutting down our camp. So that'll give us news flow well into the new year. And then lots of catalysts with that resource update, the PEA, and then we're going to start drilling, showing that this has the potential to be that 10 million plus ounce deposit, and that it's got deep roots, which a major mining company would look at and say, that's the type of deposit we want, a generational asset that you make an investment, you build a mill, and you build it on the first 10 years. That's what your NPV it gives you value for. But you think about it when you're actually building it. How long will this run with the additional resources that could be there?
Yeah. Okay. Give us so PEA is coming next year. Um, you mentioned that, what time of the year can you work out there?
We've worked year round.
Oh,
So because we have roads and cell phone and power and we're Yukoners, we know how to operate when it's cold. We drilled to December 20th a few years ago. We put our camp in February one year. It wasn't a good choice, but it was, that was during COVID and you had to, put in your own camp infrastructure during the start of that pandemic. So, yeah, we can operate year round.
oh, okay. All right. I didn't expect that. Okay. Quick overview, market cap, cash, and debt.
We have no debt. Start with that. Cash. Our last financials were 18 million, which puts us around 13 million right now, having done all of our drilling. So we're going into next year with a really strong treasury. Market cap about 75 million, 328 million shares outstanding. Fairly decent liquidity for our scale of company these days. But valuation, we're probably about $5 per ounce enterprise value if you include our cash. So pretty good discount on gold projects right now, and especially right now in Canadian tax loss season.
Okay. And was that Canadian or was that USD?
It doesn't make too much difference, but that's Canadian.
Okay. All right. So maybe 51 or 2 million US, and or that'd be like 10 million US, maybe 9.5, something like that. I'm doing this in my head, so don't quote me. Okay. And no debt. That's good. Okay. Have you what have you and your team done that's similar to this in the past? What's your track record and how does it relate to what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, my team, I've got a big team now, or not big, but the right team. My own history, I ran a private gold mine for a while. I've been involved in another project, helping with the permitting for a major, so I understand how they think. I worked for another Comp Junior that got bought out by a major, which is kind of the trajectory that we're likely on. So I've been around the business for a while. I have a project development vice president, Kai Woloshin, who's been part of permitting almost every project in the Yukon. It's really focused on the technical aspects, the metallurgy. He was part of building what is now Hecla's mine next door and permitting it, as well as many other projects in the Yukon. So wealth of experience. James Tom, my VP or my exploration manager, he's worked for my private company. He was the one who put together the model and helped us make the discovery. On our board, we've got 2 mining experts, Mark Blythe and Haley Hussell-Whitney, both with real operational experience, but also capital markets experience with Steve Barton. And then we bring in external experts like Henry Marsden, who worked for Yamana, who's got that rigor of thought and kind of brings you that experience with the wealth of projects that he's seen. So, we have a core team of 5 who are the main management team, and then we have a bunch of advisors and board members who really bring in additional experience as well. So lots of mining experience and experience with what we're doing now.
What was your private gold mine?
It was a very large scale alluvial mining operation.
Okay. And is there any similar geology between what you did there and this one?
Well, it's in the Yukon, and certainly, when I had purchased those alluvial rights over top of it, that's why, is I knew that there was potential. It was one of a package of assets, and there's often a link between the hard rock gold and alluvial or placer gold. So yeah, there is a link, and it certainly gave me the connections to understanding permitting, First Nations, and all the other things which are so important when you're trying to advance a project.
What's your relation with the locals, First Nation?
We've had some recent meetings. The overall in the Yukon, there's 11 First Nations that have settled agreements of 14. We're in a traditional territory of the Nacho-Naik-Dun, which has a settlement agreement. They have 2 agreements with the mines next door, Victoria Gold and Hecla. This summer there was, the problem with the heap leach at Victoria, which strained relationships. But certainly we're seeing that. We didn't directly have anything to be involved with that. So, we have spoken with the First Nations since then, and we're continuing our own community relations. I've been working in this community a long time. So, there's been a lot of noise related to that, but I think we're starting to see things move forward. And we were all before New Orleans, I was actually at the Geoscience Forum where, we were talking to community members, and that's really important. So, both the government and the First Nation have said that they want responsible mining in the Yukon. So I think that's a positive.
Okay, so they've already worked with Hecla and Victoria, which are essentially your neighbors. What updates do you have on Victoria? That was sad when that happened. Was there any casualties? Just
Oh, no,
give us a
no casualties. I think without speaking for it, there's a website where you can, look at your own, what's going on with the remediation there, but they're certainly, I certainly believe that's going to be a mine again. And the government said, it will be a mine again. They want to sell it and certainly get it back into production because that's such a key part of the Yukon's economy. So, things are progressing there. I know they're busy down the road. We see the trucks going past us, pretty regularly.
Okay. It definitely baby's thrown out with the bathwater on that one. Okay, who owns your company?
So we have a fairly large institutional and corporate shareholdings. There is 11%, which is held by the receiver of Victoria Gold, which we understand there will be a very orderly process for that to be sold, and we're talking to them about that. But the other key shareholders that we have, which really are a vetting of our project and our team, are by Fidelity and Franklin at 9.8 and 7.8. They don't generally invest in sub-100 million market cap companies, and they did a significant due diligence before investing in our company. So I think that's great shareholders. Also, a Cisco Development is a shareholder, and then within our retail, we have a considerable number of mining CEOs and people that are knowledgeable about the industry. So I'm a 4.2% shareholder. And with junior companies, you often see they give themselves founder stock that's at a much lower price. Our stock IPO'd at 15 cents Canadian. We're trading at 22 right now. Everybody got the same stock. I wasn't the first CEO, so I've had to buy my position in the market, which means I've put over $2 million of cash into the company. And if you check my SETI record, you'll see I've never sold a share, not even an option, when I had to pay the government the tax. So I'm very committed, and I think that makes me align with my shareholders in that I really do want to work towards the ultimate valuation being seen in my shareholding valuation. So that's a key thing to look. It's one of the things I look at is how much real skin does management have in the game, and do they put cash in, or do they get given all their stock?
So you own 4.2%?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you have a vested interest in working 60 hours a week for the next 5 or 10 years to make me a success.
Well, hopefully it's not that long. It's been 5-6 years, right? We made our discovery in 2019, our first resource 2020, and we've come a pretty long way. I think we're going to see juniors eventually get some love. We've seen the majors, they've continued. These are great gold prices. This is I've dreamed my whole career of having plus $2,500 gold price. So that's fabulous. Eventually, the majors will have to replace their reserves and resources. And an asset like this, with mineralization right on surface, with the potential, not only the resource that we have and what we think is going to be a very strong PEA, but the potential to be much larger. And then there is that synergy. With the government talking about selling the assets down the road, where else could somebody buy 2 projects and already have 15 million ounces in resources, have a mine in production, and then maybe even be producing 400,000 to 600,000 ounces per year within, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever they want to, it's how they want to stage that. But, that is pretty rare in a first world country, and majors aren't looking for little 200,000 ounce, but they need 4 or 5, 600,000 ounces per year to really replace what's being depleted on their books. So I think that gives us a huge advantage. And we've got that exceptional infrastructure, roads, hydropower lines already across the property, hydro dams only 50 kilometers away. You know, green power is so important as all of the majors are looking for their, to make their targets for ESG. So I think we're in a pretty good place. If I'm here in 5 years, I'll be surprised.
Okay. All right.
I'll be focused and I'll probably be advancing this project, but I'll be surprised with this kind of a market.
Okay. Maybe Barrick will buy you out. We'll see. Okay. You touched on it in the presentation. What are you looking for? What's the size of the prize? What do you think it could get to? Give us that.
Well, there are some other analysts that have much bigger numbers than my 10 million that I think is within that 200 meters of surface. But next year will really be some of the drilling that we do next year. We've done a ZTEM survey and some 3D geophysics this year. We've also looked at detailed mineralogy, understanding heat flow directions looking towards the source of this mineral. So this is an intrusion-related deposit, which means somewhere there's an intrusion, but we're in the rocks above or around it. So there could still be a much larger prize. We know that this mineralization goes to depth, and we've only explored 5% of our property. We have 300 square kilometers. So we've got a lot of exploration targets that we're working on for next year, as well as continuing to really demonstrate that Wormack itself, the power line and airstrip deposit, have lots of potential to grow. This is the first year we've drilled on airstrip since 2020. So pretty exciting, the results that we have back, and then what we're planning for next year.
Okay. And when you said you did 21,000 meters this year?
Yep.
And when do you get the results back from that?
So probably all of them back by March. I like to be a little bit conservative because labs can be slow, but we just shipped the last samples yesterday, remember? So we were still cutting core, and, understanding the structural story is really important. So we took more time this year logging our core, and we drilled late. The challenges in the Yukon and forest fires and everything, we were a little bit delayed, which, really shows we can operate late into the year. I don't think we're the last company that still has our camp running out there.
Okay. And so there's reserves are proven and profitable, and then resources measured and indicated and inferred, and the 7 million is inferred?
Inferred, yes.
Okay. All right.
What the drilling that we did this year will move what we think is the first areas you'd mine in the starter pit to indicated as well. So that was one of the things people wanted more confidence in our resource. We wanted to work on our geological model. We have some understanding of some of the structural controls on it, and we wanted to show that that's often a problem with gold projects when you have an inferred resource, and that's why we have these categories. As you move up your confidence in how the gold is hosted and what you know about it, and that's what's the goal of this year's program.
Okay. And the preliminary economic assessments coming out in 2025, is that like Q4, Q1? What do you?
We're saying fourth quarter because that's when it's due. And again, you hire independent consultants, but we'll try to get that before it's actually due. So yeah, we're working on it. We've already done a lot of scoping study works to guide that, and we're continuing to do optimization studies once we get the new resource, because we'll want to use the new resource in the PEA with all the drilling from this year. Then we can actually get to work on rerunning a lot of those scenarios. But strong metallurgy is what's important. Can you recover the gold? 93% from gravity CIL, which is what a larger company would probably be looking at. And there's a few mines that are similar to this, such as Paracatu in Brazil, run by Kinross, and then gravity flotation, which has about 84% recovery right now, but we think we can get that up. We're doing some metallurgical work on that over the winter here. We just pulled some more samples. That's a lower capital cost option with a small environmental footprint, small tailings facility, because we have results right now are 3.7% mass pull. So even if that's 10%, you've got a reduction from 100 to 10% of your material that ends up being treated with chemicals and then put in your tailings pond. So that's a pretty efficient model. So we've got optionality. What would a big company build? What would a smaller or a mid-tier or a Banyan, potentially, if Banyan's going to advance towards developing this build? You'd probably pick the lower capital cost option, but both of them have pretty good recoveries, and that's That's what's important. Can you get enough gold and make it economic?
Okay. Do you or anyone in your team, have you ever built a mine before?
I built a smaller scale mine, but I probably wouldn't be the CEO of building the mine. My sweet spot and skill is to get it through permitting, feasibility study, and then as a big shareholder, I would pass the baton to a mine builder. That's what you do. You plan for succession of your management team to get the right people in at the right place. Mark Blythe does. Haley's has been the general manager of running a mine and has been involved in a lot of the work to get that mine running properly when it was put into production. So we do. Henry's had some experience with that. Brad Thrall, who's an advisor to us, he built Alexco's mine, the underground Keno Hill mine, as well as the Brewery Creek mine, also in the Yukon, which was successfully mined and reclaimed. So we have that expertise in our team. And as you move forward, you're always changing your team and bringing on the right skill sets for the time period.
Okay. What's your main unanswered question? What's the biggest question facing Banyan right now?
What will the numbers of the PEA be? Will they be exciting enough? I think that with this large of a resource, the MPV is going to be fairly large. It's the IRR and the payback, which, people will be looking at. And then the other big unanswered question is, where's the intrusion? Why haven't you found it yet? And because it may be deep and those holes are expensive, we're trying to use all the science that we can to help us target that. Waiting for the 3D ZebTem report, which will be coming soon, using geochemistry, geophysics, multiple forms of geophysics, our own drill data, the isograds for temperature gradients across the property. So we're trying to do that technical work this year, but that is definitely one of the questions I get asked a lot.
Okay. Yeah. So that could be an enormous catalyst. What's the PEA going to cost?
Well, a lot of the work's already sunk in that. So, our total cost is probably going to be under $300,000 because we've already run a lot of the model. We've done the pre-work, we've done the metallurgy. So it's not a huge expense for getting a great product. If we were starting with nothing, it would cost a whole lot more because there's an awful lot of work that you have to do running. The optimization studies right now will be applicable to that PEA.
Okay. Yeah, that could be an enormous catalyst or not.
Well, that's we are pretty confident then, and we really focused on the technical work this year on what we needed, and we did do a little bit because we'd done that scoping studies. We're not going into it blind. We stuck the numbers that we wanted in the end, and worked backwards to figure out what you need, and then that guides your program. And yep, geology is sometimes variable, but we did a lot of pre-work to try to set ourselves up for success on that.
Nice. How do you differentiate yourself between you and other juniors that your competition?
Well, I like to think that we are very efficient with our shareholders' dollars. If you look at our track record, 85% of our dollars get spent in the ground. Public companies have significant G&A for the listings and legal and all the other parts that go into it. But we've been very, very successful. Our ounces, there's not a lot of other projects where we've added ounces at less than $7 Canadian per ounce. So, $5 US. We're pretty efficient. And we've really grown this very, very rapidly. So that's something pretty unique about our team. I also think this is a very unique deposit. There are not very many projects that have a highway across roads, power, green power, cell phone service, fiber optic cable. That infrastructure is exceptional. Very low strip ratio. The mineralization starts right on surface. Building roads into remote areas is a challenge to permit and also to build. And that's a challenge we don't have because we're in a pretty accessible area that already has all that existing infrastructure. So huge advantages.
Okay. ESG, environmental, social, and governance. I'm not a huge fan of it, but governments are, which makes us have to pay attention to it. What specific things is Banyan doing that implements that?
So on the environmental side, I'll just start in order. Environmental, we've got we progressively reclaim all of our drill sites. We do some of our drilling in the winter when we can use snowpack and we don't have to disturb the vegetation. We've got a really good track record of doing that. And we're also doing things in advance, like, talking with the seed and restoration company about, what we can do in advance, what planning we can do. We've hosted some courses with them. It's a First Nation led company or partly owned company, to really both advance knowledge in the community as well as ourselves. On the social side, that's really important that we communicate with the community. We just sent out our newsletter, which we send out regularly to the community. We also met with First Nation, as I said. That's really important. We usually have multiple meetings in a year. Historically, we meet with our pre-season report, and tell them what we're going to do for the year and get their input. And then we sometimes within the season or have tours out to site. And then, in the fall, we generally try to have a community meeting and then also a meeting with the First Nation. So it's a process, and it's a continual process. And then there's also other communities, like we want to meet with the community in Whitehorse as well, because it's not just your local community; it's the whole Yukon community. So on the social side, we also run a charity. I've run it for 13 years. I work with First Nations in schools. We will have given out $2.5 million with what we're going to distribute this next year, which is something I'm pretty proud of. We've worked so hard, and we're seeing it actually have an impact. So the social side, something that I really believe in. Projects are supposed to give benefits back to the communities nearest to them, and they should be long-lasting benefits. And then on the governance side, we have a great independent board with skill sets that are needed. We just added Haley to the board. Mark became the chairman. We take the governance part seriously, and how our companies run. So I think that's, we'd like to think we're doing that all right. And we have policies related to that on our website, and we evaluate ourselves annually based on how we did.
Congratulations on the charity. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
100% volunteer run the charity for 13 years. So actually almost going on 14 now. Yeah.
That's when I like making money. The more money you make, the more you can give away. Okay, you guys also have a little cash flow, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Tell us about that.
Well, during COVID, you needed extra infrastructure and buildings because you couldn't put people from different areas or community people with people that came from a different province. So we built a lot of extra beds, and that's enabled us and other infrastructure. So we're able to ramp some of that. We also helped out on the wildfires. We had the wildfire crew stay at our camp. We also were able to put some of our equipment and operators out helping with that. And we do things like deliver water, and we're quite creative because we own all this infrastructure and equipment, and it's an area where some of that's in limited supply. So it's I think we made $1.5 million this year, and we'll make some revenue again next year.
That's unusual for an exploration company.
Unusual.
That's cool.
All declining ballots.
Yes. Okay, so you got 13 million Canadian on the books. What's your plans with that?
Well, obviously the resource update in the PEA, and then we'll have a drill program for next year. And we like to maintain a strong treasury. We don't have, it's not burning a hole in our pocket. We're careful with our money. So the program that we plan for exploration next year will be really focused on what we think is gonna add some value. We haven't decided how many meters yet. We're still waiting for all the pieces to come in and to do our evaluation. So, in March, we'll give some more details on what our exploration plan is, but we know it's funded. So that's an exciting thing for us, that we've got the money to do what we need to do next year.
Okay. What's your average cost per
meter?
Yeah.
$350 Canadian per meter.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool. Tara, do you have any, what's that?
We're pretty cheap drillers. That's because we're road accessible, and we have all that existing infrastructure. A lot of companies, when you're in high mountains or remote areas, some people's drill costs are $1,000 a meter. So it really does matter. So it's a good question to ask.
Yeah, like I'm the one that's coming to mind is Snowline. They're so far out there that it's a lot of cost. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to end on, Tara?
I'm pretty excited. This gold price is great. And, whether it's 25 or 2,700, it's a great time to be a gold exploration company. I think we've positioned Banyan really well. I'm excited. We've had our best technical year ever. So I'm excited for what my team is going to deliver and what I'm going to deliver for shareholders in 2025. And hopefully we're in it to win as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Tara. And thank you for tuning in. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Banyan's website will be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Be sure to support the show and share this with anyone that you think needs to hear it. It's probably your buddy that can't stop talking about tech stocks. You have yourself a great rest of the day, and we will talk to you next time.